This is Caring for Kids on News Talk 760 WJR. Presented by the Children's Foundation. And here's your host, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation, Larry Burns.
Well, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to our January 2021 edition of Caring for Kids. On tonight's show, we'll be speaking to some fabulous guests who are all playing an active role in making their communities better. Joining us first will be Matt Friedman. Matt is chairman of the Children's Foundation Board of Trustees and co-founder of Tanner Friedman, a leader in public relations. Chris Lambert will join us. He's the founder and CEO of Remodeled. And Blythe Tyler and Eliot Weiner of Care House of Oakland County round out our guests. It's all coming up next on Caring for Kids here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, News Talk 760 WJR.
It's Caring for Kids with Larry Burns.
Welcome back, everyone, and again, welcome to 2021, Caring for Kids. Right now, we're joined by Matt Friedman. Matt is the co-founder of Tanner Friedman Strategic Communications, where he works directly with clients and leads teams on developing and implementing traditional and emerging communication strategies. Matt is a recognized crisis communication strategist, helping to guide organizations of all sizes through bad news and times of change. In addition to his PR work, Matt also chairs the Children's Foundation Board, as well as serves on boards of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, Legacy Detroit Medical Center, the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, and the Detroit Regional Chamber Foundation. So, Matt, welcome to Caring for Kids. It's great to hear your voice, as always. And let's start out by giving our listeners a brief overview of how Tanner Friedman has been adjusting to the pandemic that we've been living with now for 10 months or so, and how it relates to your clients and your business, because I know it's had a pretty big impact on what you do every day.
It sure has. I mean, what we do fundamentally is help our clients connect their messages with audiences. And all of that has been disrupted, just like all of our lives have. So I think back to March of 2020 when we were basically helping clients cancel stuff, which was some of the most difficult news they've had to deliver to their audiences. And through the course of the year, what we found is that our clients really needed us to help them communicate change. Change is really hard for any of us. Things that we're used to doing, things that we're used to experiencing, the way we interact with companies, the way we attend events and see our friends. It doesn't matter what perspective you look at what's happened over the last year or so, change has impacted on it, and communicating change has become imperative. So that's what my colleagues and I have spent a disproportionate amount of time doing and helping our clients think of the most effective ways and the most effective words to use when communicating change. And we think that's helped them through the pandemic, will help them survive and thrive on the other side. But it's been a tremendous amount of work and teamwork. And it's been, on one hand, it's been gratifying. On the other hand, it's some of the best professional experience I never want to have again.
Right. And I know there's been times when you've been extremely busy helping these clients. And so I know the workload hasn't really diminished at all, has it?
Overall, it hasn't. I mean, there are certain clients that have their businesses at a lower volume and certain at a higher volume because of how the pandemic has affected them. We had the privilege of working on a couple of campaigns with the 2020 election. One nonpartisan voter information campaign in Detroit, one bipartisan voter information campaign statewide. That was a tremendous amount of work to make sure that voters had the information they needed and the confidence and assurance they needed to participate in the election. But the great news for all of us here in Michigan is that the election was very successful. Many voters participated. The election was safe and secure and free of a lot of concerns about COVID. And that's good for everybody. That's good for our communities and our society.
Absolutely. And as chairman of the Children's Foundation, a position I know that you take very seriously and spend so much time on, do you mind giving our listeners a snapshot of how 2020 was for the foundation, even during the pandemic, and how the foundation adjusted accordingly?
I think all charities had to adjust, and we were able to adjust very quickly. It became obvious to us in the first weeks of the pandemic that the children and families we serve through our partners and with our partners were going to have different needs than we had forecasted and anticipated. At the same time, the needs that we were prepared to serve and had budgeted and funded to serve were not going to go away. We needed to put more money into the community for unanticipated needs that kids and their families were facing when it came to their health. So our staff and our board worked together very quickly to put money into the community that we never expected to, for work that nobody expected they would have to do. And I think that's what I'm the most proud of in 2020, is that we were able to respond quickly and respond in a very meaningful way to health challenges and consequences that we couldn't plan for. And I give great credit to our staff and to our partners throughout the state of Michigan who raised their hand and said, here's how we need help. And our board and our donors rallied around them to be able to provide that help like never before.
Absolutely. And we're talking with Matt Friedman, who is chairman of the Children's Foundation and also a partner at Tanner Friedman. And to put a couple numbers to what you just said, Matt, is that the foundation has to date, because we're not done, granted about $500,000 of emergency funding to over 50 organizations. So that really indicates the diverse impact we're trying to have in helping organizations during these difficult times.
Truly special, something that's so unusual in our community that I'm so proud of, that we were able to do that and do it not only in quick fashion, but also in the deep way it was needed throughout the state.
Well, yes, the board led by you started it on or about March 16th, 17th with an initial commitment of $250,000. We had donors step up. We had the NFL step up. And it really has been a very rewarding situation in a very trying time. And as we start a new year, 2021, I think all of us are optimistic that this year will be different, hopefully, and better for all of us as it relates to the pandemic. But the foundation celebrated on January 1st, 2021, its 10th anniversary of being an independent foundation for children and families. And so as chairman, what are some of your goals as we enter this new year and year 11, if you will, of independence?
In thinking about the future, I can't help but thinking about the past. Over the last 10 years, we've accomplished something that no other foundation in the country has ever done before. And we had skeptics who said that because of the history, we may not be able to do it here in Southeast Michigan. We thought differently, and we have become the first independent foundation focused on kids' health in the country to successfully emerge from a children's hospital, broaden its mission, and help more kids and families. Here we are 10 years after spinning out from the hospital, after Children's Hospital of Michigan was purchased by a for-profit company and then can no longer operate a charity like ours. And so we've accomplished something that nobody else, no other community in the country has been able to do. And we've done that because of a constant focus on our community and to be able to do the work and provide the funding that wouldn't happen without us. You know, we knew that if we didn't exist, we'd have to be invented from scratch. And that's a pretty amazing place to be and a great opportunity seized. So looking to the future, we know that we have not yet met all of the needs of kids' health, either in the city of Detroit or Metro Detroit or even in the state of Michigan. And so what my charge is to my wonderful colleagues on the board, who are some of the greatest people living and working in Michigan, and to our staff, some of the most talented and dedicated nonprofit professionals, the challenge is let's do more with more. Let's raise more money. Let's have more partners. Let's focus on more programs so we can help more kids. And so as we look to the next 10 years and beyond of our foundation, that's the focus. And it's so fulfilling to have everybody on board with that.
Absolutely. And this past year, we developed, with your leadership and your colleagues on the board, our first strategic plan. We now have 8 strategic initiatives that we're moving forward with. And talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about a couple of those, one being our commitment to mental health And then about growing our affiliates, and if you don't mind talking a little bit about both of those before we let you go.
I'm really proud of what we're doing in mental health. Mental health has been stigmatized for far too long. It has been underfunded for far too long. As we've seen during the pandemic, kids suffer from mental health challenges just like adults do, but kids don't always have the resources that adults do in our healthcare system, in our region, or in our state. So we see an opportunity as a foundation to fill those gaps and allow kids to be able to have the mental health services, medical services in particular, that they need, whether it's anxiety and depression or something as really life-threatening as substance abuse disorder. We are really committed to this as the Children's Foundation to work with our partners in communities to provide new solutions to address, in some cases for the first time, mental health in kids. I mentioned our partners, and Larry, I know every week, every month on this show, you mentioned the partners, but we could not do what we do as a foundation without our more than 100 partners in the community and around the state. 10 years ago, we had basically one partner, and that was Children's Hospital of Michigan. And they are, to some extent, our flagship, and they're a terrific partner. And we're really privileged to be able to help them do the work that they do. Some of the best pediatric research in the country is happening there that we help fund and provide the infrastructure for, and we're proud of that. But one of the challenges that we offered the community is how much more could we do with more help, with more collaboration, and with more eyes and ears in the community and around the state. And we've accomplished that. And I think that's what differentiates us from anybody else trying to do anything close to what we're trying to do.
Great. And then the affiliates, we brought on the Jamie Daniels Foundation. We helped create that 3 years ago. We have Leaders for Kids, which is 8 years old now, which is an affiliate. And then the most recent one would be the First Tee Greater Detroit. And just mention briefly of why the foundation would bring on these affiliates as part of our family.
We have infrastructure to be able to do more with them than they'd be able to do on their own. We have, like I said, a really talented group of nonprofit professionals who can get the behind the scenes, the back office work done. We also have reach in the community that would take years for any of these organizations to try to establish on their own. So I'm really proud of the fact that we have been able to bring like-minded other nonprofits under our umbrella to help them focus on what they do best, which may be fundraising or maybe program delivery. Let us take care of the rest, and it gets them up to speed and allows them to do what they want to do more quickly. So this is a model that we first experimented with and have now proven, and it's something that I think will allow us to have more impact than we'd ever be able to have on our own.
Yeah, great explanation. So, Matt Friedman, thank you very much for all you're doing for the foundation and the community and your other volunteer roles. I don't know where you find the time to do it, but thank you, and we're very grateful for all of your efforts.
Well, there's nothing more important than I could be doing, that anybody could be doing, than helping our community, especially at a time like this. I'm grateful to the professionals at the Children's Foundation who allow me and seek my volunteer leadership, and it has been one of the great thrills of my life to see this foundation come together and do its work over the last 10 years.
Wonderful. More to come. And that's Matt Friedman, co-founder of Tanner Friedman and chairman of the Children's Foundation Board of Trustees. Coming up next, we're going to hear from Chris Lambert about his great work at Life Remodeled when Caring for Kids continues, here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR, presented by the Children's Foundation.
Welcome back, everyone. Larry Burns here. January edition of Caring for Kids. That was a great interview with Matt Friedman. So fortunate to have a leader like Matt leading the way on the board. And speaking of leading the way, right now we have Chris Lambert. Chris started his college years at Indiana University, envisioning a path to law school and real estate development. But then a spiritual awakening during his junior year led him on a different journey. Chris was called to Fuller and Gordon Cornwell seminaries, where he earned his Master of Divinity and doctorate in preaching. In 2007, Chris and his wife spent 7 months in a Liberian village, an experience that cemented his passion for community development. In 2010, Chris started Life Remodeled, loosely based off the TV show Extreme Makeover, Home Edition. After 3 years of building houses, Chris partnered with the Detroit Public Schools to refocus Life Remodeled efforts on under-resourced schools and their surrounding neighborhoods. Over the last 7 years, Life Remodeled has mobilized $35 million and nearly 70,000 volunteers to set the groundwork for sustainable change in 4 different Detroit neighborhoods. Chris received numerous awards, including Building and Design Construction 40 Under 40, Cranes Detroit 40 Under 40, and more. So, Chris, welcome to Caring for Kids, and Happy New Year, and congratulations on your recent anniversary celebration of Life Remodeled. So tell our listeners a bit about the journey that you've had with Life Remodeled over the last 10 years.
All right, Larry, it is great to be with you, as always. And as you said, we started our organization 10 years ago. It started with a crazy idea that when we look back on it, it turned into something far more intense and comprehensive than we ever imagined. So what we started doing was something very similar to the television show that used to exist, Extreme Makeover Home Edition, where we would build modest homes in 6 days for families and give them to them for free. But we would also take the families through financial training, set them up with a financial advisor, a clinical psychologist to process family dynamics, and just a whole wraparound approach where we would also invest in the surrounding neighborhood. Well, we kept doing that for a few years, and then that morphed into an idea where we started renovating existing high schools in the city of Detroit. So in 2014, we renovated Cody High School, then 2015 Osborne, then 2016 Denby. And each of those were about $5 million investments into the school and into the community, and they involved 10,000 volunteers every summer, beautifying 4 square miles around that school. And we were seeing a tremendous amount of impact in that model. And then the Detroit Public Schools offered us to take on a new strategy that we ended up saying yes to when they invited us to acquire a vacant school building, formerly known as the Durfee Elementary Middle School building, located at Lodge and Davison on the west side of the city. And we ended up repurposing that building into a one-stop shop of opportunity, where we have filled this building with 34 of the best and brightest nonprofits and several for-profit entrepreneurs who are moving the needle collectively on education, jobs, and human services, serving over 14,000 people a year. So that's a little thumb sketch of where we've been.
Wow, that's a lot. So thank you for doing that. And that was a quick summary of 10 years and what great success you've had. And we're talking with Chris Lambert, founder of Life Remodeled. The Children's Foundation has several partners of ours that are in your Durfee location. So that's cool, and we're very happy about that, and we want to grow that relationship. And we hope to have more things going on. As you well know, our listeners might not know, but the Children's Foundation operates the First Tee Greater Detroit. And one of our major goals in that is to serve the underserved youth of Detroit, who really don't, for the most part, know golf or much about it. And we want to use that as a way to teach life skills like many of your partners are doing in Durfee. And so we're hoping to increase our relationship with Durfee and your partners and you. And so that's something I'm excited about. And I know that you've had some of those discussions as well.
Yeah, we're really excited about that, Larry, because your organization, the Children's Foundation, and our organization, Life Remodeled, have a lot in common in that we're both big believers in collaboration and in connecting nonprofits to one another, because I know we both believe that no one nonprofit has all the solutions to society's challenges and opportunities. And I can say this, I've personally been guilty of operating in a silo, having blinders on and just focusing on our one sweet spot. And the truth is, I believe society loses when we don't collaborate, because, as important as something like literacy is, we all believe it's foundational, it's critical. It's not the be-all and end-all to success in life. There are many other opportunities that a child and a family of course, need to succeed, and it takes a village to raise a child. So I love what you're doing as a foundation, and I think it's perfectly compatible with who we are and what we're about. So thanks for the partnership.
Yeah, excellent. More to come there. And when I was over at Durfee a month or two ago, it was, right in the smack middle of the pandemic, and there was so much going on. So I know you're not done there. So what are some of the cool things that you're working on in Durfee?
So you've got 34 organizations who are serving 14,000 people, 5,000 kids in education, 5,000 adults with good, sustainable jobs, not temporary jobs, but living wage jobs, and then 4,000 children, youth, and adults being served with human services. And you look at that, that's just obviously a great accomplishment with this one-stop shop, but it really goes beyond the real estate component. It's all about the opportunity for these nonprofits to collaborate with one another. And one of the things that we've done to increase the impact of some of our great organizations who are serving youth and children is we've added some common spaces in the building that could serve as incentive to bring more kids to the space so that we can help funnel these kids into the other great opportunities that exist. So most recently, we took an old locker room and we turned it into, the best way I could describe it is to say it's a totally free Dave & Buster's. It's this amazing arcade with all the coolest games that the kids asked for, which are all from like the 90s, by the way. So I think they Googled them because I don't think they grew up with Street Fighter and NBA Jam and all that. But anyway, and we put in
There's not like a Pac-Man there, is there?
Well, there's a 4-player Pac-Man where the Pac-Mans can eat each other, Larry. You got to come over. We can consider this work related because
absolutely,
it all ties into the mission, right?
Hey, right, it does. Yeah.
Basically, the kids can play in the arcade as long as they're involved in after-school programming. So it's totally free, but you got to be involved in a program and you got to be consistent. Another thing we put in is a totally free laundromat, and this one was a real surprise to me. I learned a year ago that at the time, the number one reason kids were truant from school in Detroit is because of lack of access to the ability to wash their clothes. And so we responded to that thanks to some funding from the Jewish Fund, and we put in a free laundromat. We also took the swimming pool, which we tried to give away to several organizations for free, but no one wanted it because it cost $250,000 a year. So we filled it in with concrete, turned it into this after-school tutoring space, because the demand for tutoring and mentorship is so high, even higher than what we've been able to accommodate with our great tenants who are here. And so we're all working collaboratively, and I'm really excited about the latest and greatest that we've been able to do here to the space.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I can't wait to get back there and then develop our growing relationship with First Tee as well. And so I know you well enough to know that you're many things, all good, by the way, and you're an entrepreneur. You have a great vision. And so what are you looking forward to as it relates to Life Remodeled in the future in 2021 and beyond? So what's on the horizon?
Well, as we talked about earlier, you've seen quite an evolution in our organization's strategy. Our mission has remained the same. We exist to bridge people across divides to help transform each other's lives. We believe all this division we're experiencing around race, religion, politics, socioeconomic differences, this division is keeping us from being who we're meant to be as humans. We're better together. And so everything that we do is about that. Now, that said, I believe after 10 years, we've discovered our niche in terms of our strategy. And our programs of our 6-day project, our home repairs, those are here to stay. And so is this program of acquiring a vacant school building, repurposing it, turning it into this one-stop shop of opportunity. And it's incredibly socially impactful, and it's financially self-sustainable, because once we pay for it with the renovations, it pays for itself through the presence of our tenants, which we charge them under market value to be here. And we're able to do that because of the philanthropic dollars through construction. And we are convinced this model needs to be replicated. This model needs to exist in several neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. And so for us, that's about a 5 to 7 year commitment per community. And right now we're trying to figure out where we're going to go next. And we only want to go where we're wanted to be in a community that says, we need this, we want to partner with Life Remodeled. And then it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? We're learning from the community is gaining additional resources and opportunities. So we haven't solidified 100% where we're going to be yet, but I will be very transparent with everyone in that our number one candidate is Cooley High School. That's where we want to be, and we're in the process of discerning if that is the perfect fit. But that's where I hope everything ends up going next.
Excellent. And Cooley is, I think, just from what I know, it's about 3 times the size of Durfee. Is that right?
It's 321,000 square feet compared to Durfee's 143,000 square feet.
Okay.
It's sitting on 18 acres compared to Durfee's 8, and it's been vacant, so it is in almost critical condition. It needs to be renovated soon, or
Right.
that building will be unrehabable. And so it's a project we're trying to figure out over the next few months if it's a go or no go.
Great. So, well, I hope it's a go because I want to be involved from the Children's Foundation in several different ways. And if people haven't seen these schools, they're unbelievable architecturally. They're like little castles almost. And so they need to be renovated and they need to have a rebirth. And you're doing that. So hopefully that'll happen.
I just want to say, when I tell people we rehab schools, typically they think about these boring, ugly, jail-looking buildings that we often build today. But I say the best way to look at it is think about Harry Potter's school. That's what these schools look like that were built in the 20s.
Like at Durfee, you pull up to the front of the building and you think you're arriving at a state. It's so cool. So keep up the great work at Life Remodeled. And the Children's Foundation wants to be a long-standing partner of yours, so I look forward to that. So keep us posted on and where you're going next.
All right, brother. We're in it together. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Chris. That's Chris Lambert, founder of Life Remodeled. Coming up next, we're going to hear from one of our partners, and that will be with Blythe Tyler and Eliot Weiner of Care House of Oakland County. That's when Caring for Kids continues right here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR. Presented by the Children's Foundation. Once again, here's Larry Burns.
Well, our last 2 guests are partners of the Children's Foundation, and that is Blythe Tyler. She's the CEO of Care House of Oakland County, and she's been there since 2016. At Care House, Blythe works with passionate, skilled, and courageous team of 40 people, along with over 100 volunteers to provide intervention and therapy services for victims of child sexual abuse, in addition to community-focused child abuse prevention programs. One of those key volunteers is their leader, and that's Eliot Weiner. Eliot is chairman of the board of Care House of Oakland County, a role he has held since September of last year. Eliot is also currently the executive vice president of the Edward C. Levy Company, one of Detroit's iconic companies, I might add, where he has worked for the past 9 years holding a variety of positions. And so I'm going to start with Eliot. So Eliot, welcome to Caring for Kids. So Eliot, I know you're an extremely busy business person, and tell us why you've chosen to be so involved with Care House of Oakland County, in addition to all the other things that you're doing.
Well, first, Larry, thank you for taking the time to have us on. There really are 2 questions in here. First being, why volunteer? And in my family and in the Levy group of companies, we're encouraged to volunteer and to help lead organizations we care about. And this is really woven into the fabric of my family and really part of being a good neighbor. And I'm so very appreciative of the opportunity to give back and to work with professionals like our CEO, Blythe Tyler. And I guess the next question is, well, why Care House? Well, unfortunately, Larry, 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before they turn 18. And as a father of 3 young boys, this spoke to me. And Care House is a big part of, I believe, the solution. So Care House offers high-quality services to families treating victims of sexual abuse and working hard to prevent future abuse through educational programs. Care House really is a first-rate operation that fulfills its mission to protect and prevent child abuse and is truly a wonderful steward of our investors' dollars.
Absolutely. And we're now one of those investors, and we're delighted to do that. We'll talk about that in a little while, but thanks, Eliot. So, Blythe, how has, from the staff perspective, and all perspectives, I guess, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the organization over the last many, many months?
Well, I want to echo Eliot's sentiments. Thank you for having us on today. But it's interesting because the COVID-19 pandemic, in a lot of ways, didn't affect us in terms of the services we provide. So since we're unique to Oakland County, we're the only ones that provide the forensic interviews, working with law enforcement, as well as treating child sexual abuse victims. We had our doors open the entire time. We expect, too, that even though we've been continuing to do the work, that our numbers are going to rise as things start to open up, because we know that 40% of suspected abuse reports actually come from schools. And so with the schools being closed and everyone learning virtually, we know that there are some kids that are falling through the cracks, and that we're very hopeful, though, that those kids will come back and we'll be able to help them moving forward. You know, we see 125 clients every week just in our therapy department. And so when the shelter-in-place order started, we were really quickly able to pivot to telehealth. Our therapists are very happy with the results that we're getting from telehealth, but we're now back, once the order was lifted, we're now back to about half and half. Half of our clients still come in person, especially the little ones. It's much easier to do that work face-to-face with our little kids. And then the other half remain with telehealth. But overall, in 2020, our supporters, too, have just really stepped up. So we were able to maintain all of our core services. And of course, that includes the Children's Foundation partnership as well.
Yeah, and I guess time will tell how much of an impact the pandemic has had on families and kids as it relates to your services as kids get back to school and more reporting is done. So I'm sure that you'll have a better sense of that once school's back in action. That would be my guess. And so, and you know, you're in Oakland County, and one of my former colleagues and good friend Dave Coulter is leading the county. So I just have to assume he's a friend of Care House Oakland County, because we did this kind of work together before he was called to serve the county. So I think you're in good hands from that perspective.
Definitely.
We're talking with Blythe Tyler and Eliot Weiner from Care House of Oakland County. And I know you have a virtual event coming up in just a few days on January 28th. So tell our listeners about that.
Sure. We have our annual Circle of Friends event. This year is actually our 25th anniversary of holding this event on the last Friday in January. And we're going to do it virtually this year, and that's okay. We're going to be focused on Mr. Barry King, who recently passed away. Barry is the father of the last victim of the Oakland County child killers. For those of you that know, that have grown up in Metro Detroit and lived here, you know that sad story. He has been a tireless supporter of an advocate for his son in finding justice, but also for Care House. And so we want to take this opportunity to honor his legacy and his support of us. In addition, there has been a book written recently by Marnie Rich Keenan called The Snow Killings. And it is a labor of love, and she spent many years researching that book. And so we'll be highlighting that with Kevin Dietz, along with the King family, the children, the surviving children of Mr. King. And again, that'll air on the 20th of January, here just in a couple days at 11:30. And you can register right on our website at carehouse.org.
Carehouse.org, and it's open to the public, correct?
It is. It's open to the public. Event registration, there's no cost for that. If you want to get an autographed copy of the book and participate in our virtual book club later in the year on March 9th, you can make a donation of $100 or more to do that.
Good. And we'll put that on our website, our Caring for Kids website as well. So thank you. Eliot, the Children's Foundation, we briefly mentioned, recently made a grant to Care House of Oakland County regarding child abuse prevention. Do you mind telling our listeners about the grant and what you're hoping to achieve through that?
Yeah, well, first, thank you.
You're welcome.
The Children's Foundation has been supporting Care House for 4 years now. And the focus of the grants has been on our community education programs. These programs focus on prevention. So training parents and mandated reporters like teachers on how to identify and correctly report suspected abuse of children. With the support, thank you, of Children's Foundation, we've been able to train an additional 10,000 people. So, Larry, this is real impact.
10,000 people.
10,000.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So, and when you ask about what we hope to achieve, I guess what I'd say is Care House really is the expert on treating child abuse victims. But ideally, we'd like to put ourselves out of business by preventing child abuse altogether. And on our way there, we're working towards creating a community of educated parents and teachers who know what to look for in an environment where kids are comfortable disclosing child abuse. Unfortunately, more than 60% of kids who are sexually abused will never tell anyone. And we want to change that. And mandated reporters like teachers are not required to take training today on when or how to report that abuse. And we want to change that too.
Absolutely. And so it's not something that they're learning in undergraduate as when becoming a teacher, they're not learning about this. And so you want to make sure that there's opportunities for teachers, particularly young teachers getting into the profession, that they're aware of what to look for.
Absolutely. And thanks to the Children's Foundation, we're able to do that in a meaningful way.
Well, that's great. And one of the things that we're really committed to is breaking down the stigma that might be surrounded by things like this for children, that they're more comfortable reporting it, that parents are, if it's certainly not happening in the home. And so that stigma of sexual abuse is something that we're trying to help with as well. And so what you're doing, these 10,000 people are now more equipped to move forward and be more attentive to what's going on with kids. So I commend you for that. And we at the Children's Foundation are delighted to partner with you and hope to continue to do that for many, many years. And maybe someday we won't need to. Yeah,
so in actuality, we've trained 20,000,
okay.
but your funding has allowed us to do an additional 10. So we're
that's
we're
even
of course
better.
Funding it ourselves too. So we're making an impact. So thank you.
No doubt. That's even better. So Blythe, as we start a new year, I think all of us are hoping that the pandemic goes away at some point in the 2021 and that we get back to some sense of normalcy. And so what's your vision as the CEO of Care House of Oakland County for the next 12 months? What are some of your major objectives with you and your board? So both of you can answer this if you'd like.
Sure. I think we learned a lot from the pandemic, as did most other nonprofits and businesses. And I can say that I'm so grateful for the amazing team that I have that was able to step up and continue to provide the support and the services that we do in the community. So I want to say thank you to them and to our board of directors and Eliot. It's been a pleasure over the last year. As we look forward to 2021, we have committed to a new strategic plan. And that strategic plan, when we were developing it, Eliot and our board really committed to it being actionable. So it's not going to sit on a shelf. We're going to do the work and look at it regularly, probably change it regularly too. But the few things that we're doing over the next 12 months is we have a new Oakland County prosecutor as well. She is very committed to protecting children, Karen McDonald. So we know there's going to be more demand for our unique services. We're also preparing for that increased demand. And then really working across, well, Eliot, do you want to talk about that, the working across our state with our sister organizations?
Sure. Thanks, Blythe. There is a group of child advocacy centers like Care House in Michigan, and we work with the association to really share best practices and to have a legislative voice. As we talked about prevention, Larry, the short term is educating our mandated reporters and parents. The long term is really having a public act that requires these mandated reporters to take the training and to report abuse. So that's a continuous goal that we'll be working towards with the larger association and with the leaders in Lansing.
Great. And as we mentioned, or I mentioned it in a call that the three of us had a little while ago, the Children's Foundation would be interested in helping that advocacy role in some way. So keep us in mind if there's something for us to get involved in. So we would love to help. So, Eliot, is there anything else as a volunteer, as the chair of the board, that you're hoping to achieve this coming year or beyond?
Well, I think Blythe hit it on the head. We really have a strategic plan with really 7 subsets of actionable to-dos. And we know that Oakland County is a big place, and we're trying to be more accessible to our clients. And we have to make sure we're ready for the additional disclosures and requirement from our clients and the clients we don't know yet as schools get back in session and as the wonderful Karen McDonald starts to make a positive impact on our county.
Excellent. So, well, thank you both for what you're doing. And as we've talked about, as school gets back in place, and the more training you do, I assume the more reporting that there'll be because people will be more attentive. And so it'll be very, very interesting to see how that impacts your workload and keep us, the Children's Foundation, in mind on how we can continue to help as things evolve, because that's what we do and that's what we want to do. So that partnership should last for a long, long time. So anything else you want to share with us before we go?
I would just wrap up again by just reminding everyone to visit curehouse.org to register for that event. You know, we can only fit 300 people or so when we're having the event in person. And so we have almost limitless opportunities for this one.
Absolutely. So that's one of the positive things of what we're dealing with. So January 28th at 11?
At noon.
Or at noon?
Noon. Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Blythe Tyler and Eliot Weiner of Care House of Oakland County. Eliot, say hi to Ed Levy and to your dad at the Edward C. Levy Company. It's one of the iconic companies in the Detroit area. And with your leadership, your dad's and Ed's, it's going to be that way for many, many decades to come. So say hi to everybody there at the Edward C. Levy Company.
It's very nice of you to say, Larry. Thank you for your leadership and all you do for our communities and our region. And thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. And so, again, that's Blythe Tyler and Eliot Weiner of Care House of Oakland County. And next, I'm going to give you some updates on the Children's Foundation, what's going on over the next few weeks. So you don't want to go anywhere. So thanks. Welcome back, everybody. Larry Burns here. We had a great show. We kicked off the year in a wonderful way with our 3 guests. And I'm also delighted to share with you that the foundation ended 2020 with a record grant-making year, having awarded more than $7 million to over 116 partners. 4 years ago, we started with 4 partners. We now have 116. And I want to thank everyone who supported us and made this a reality. I also want to mention that the start of 2021, and hope you stay tuned to Caring for Kids throughout the year, as we have so many things going on with the foundation. It's going to be a great year, and we want you to come along with us. So stay healthy, stay safe, onward.
Caring for Kids with Larry Burns on WJR has been presented by the Children's Foundation.